Good morning. Sorry to keep you all waiting. Welcome to the November Riverfront Design Committee meeting. May we have roll call, please?
Paul Dedman.
Present.
Anthony Black. Kenny Dennis. Brian Doherty. John Joyce.
Here.
Don Kasperite.
Here.
Richie Splitt.
Here.
David Yost. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Item 2, approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was held on October the 3rd of this year. The minutes were in your packet. Does anyone have any questions, comments, changes? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion for approval. Mr. Kasper, who's Mr. Joyce? All those in favor? Thank you. Item 3, cases withdrawn. There are none. Item 4, consent docket. There's none. Item 5, continuance requests. There are none. Item 6, cases for individual consideration. We have 2 items. The first one is SRCA-130027 at 4311 Southwest 15th Street. Aubrey?
This is a new hotel project in the Meridian Gateway District from Premier Hospitality Group, Inc.
Is the applicant present, please? Good morning. Would you state your name, please?
Good morning. I'm Julie Landis, and I represent the hotel. And this is the 4th hotel that the Premier Group is building in this area. It's a continuation of their original plan. Going through the staff report, as far as the setbacks that the staff had a question of, we are on the agenda for this afternoon's Board of Adjustments meeting for a variance on those setbacks. And if you have any other questions about the hotel.
Does anyone on the committee have any questions? Scotty, do you have?
Staff recommends approval with a variance to the setback. We'd ask that you give us 2 separate motions, one to either approve or deny the motion for the approval of the project, and then a separate one for the recommendation of the Board of Adjustment.
Okay. Anyone on the committee to make a motion? Which was this? Is there a second? Second by moved by Mr. Kasper, second by Mr. Joyce. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. And as to the recommendation to the Board of Adjustment for the variance, anyone care to make a motion on that? Second. Moved by Mr. Splitt, seconded by Mr. Yost. All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's approved. Thank you very much. Item 6B, SRCA-130028 at 431 Southwest 11th Street. Aubrey?
This is a proposal to demolish an existing 8,000 square foot masonry structure in the Western Gateway District.
Is the applicant present? Good morning to you. Would you please state your name, please?
Stacy Nennis, and I'm the President and CEO of Neighborhood Services Organization. Okay. And we're just here today to address your concerns about the demolition regarding 431 Southwest 11th. NSO actually visited with city staff about 2 years ago regarding the demolition of this structure because we wanted to go into a capital campaign. And then at that time, we were assured that the building would be okay to demo, and we proceeded with our fundraising efforts. And today, we've raised almost $2 million, enough to already start the building process for 431 Southwest 11th. So we actually, before we even started any of the fundraising process, we hired Kenyon Morgan Architecture. He came in and did some conceptual designs regarding, using the building that we currently have at 431 without demoing. We also hired Steve Ford to come in and do some structural reports for us, and they're here today to kind of share what their findings are. So I'm going to turn it over to Kenyon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning. Would you please state your name for the record, please?
Kenyon Morgan, and I live at 8700 Oakmont Drive in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yes, I was hired by NSO to try to plan for their new headquarters and dentist office at this location, and none of these are shown. Let's see, the building. You actually have a slide of the building there. Okay. See right there, actually, the building is 8,000 square feet. NSO has been operating this building, I think, for over 60 years. Sam will speak to that a little bit. But it's a building that has six different floor levels. And so the real and you can see the way the building is entered now from the back right there. We have this ramp coming up the back, but the original building had 2 main floors, and the first one was 6 feet below grade, and the second one was about 6 feet above grade, and it also had a choir loft in front, and then it had seating balconies in back. So that first building had 4 different levels, and then they added on a parish house right here, which had 2 different levels. And these were actually 2 different levels that did not correspond to any of the other 4 already in existence. So we were trying to get 6 different floor levels to meet ADA. Well, so we ended up with 2 elevators, 2 lifts, and over 40% of the square foot space in the building devoted to circulation. And you know, it just doesn't make sense. Even after you take out all that space, the spaces that you have remaining are very cut up, so it doesn't make any sense for it to be the headquarters. So we presented that to the staff, and it was also a very expensive option. We had to add on to the building also. So the second option was to look at the site and see if they could demolish that building and build a new building on that site. And I don't know, and we submitted pictures and floor plan of how that new building would look, and I think that's not in this packet, but that's in the separate one that you have that is an informational item later on. So, but besides the building being very hard to make work and really not economically feasible, it also has a basement 6 feet below, which is included in that 8,000 square feet. And that has always been wet, and I think you can sort of basically this is set in the old riverbed, and if you recall, when they were building the I-40 the I-40 highway, they wanted to submerge that about 10 or 12 feet below grade, but they ended up having to bring that up to be only about 6 feet below grade, because of the water table level. And I think the same thing is affecting the basement here, that you really cannot depend that will ever be fully dry. And Sam Bowman, who was the executive director of NSO, can speak about that after Steve Ford talks about the structural deficiencies of the building.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Steve Ford. I live at 12560 Crick Hollow Court, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And I'm not going to get down into the weeds of all the structural deficiencies. Broad brush, our firm was retained back in March of 2012 to look at, and what originally initiated the request to take a look at the building was a structural collapse in the northwest corner of this building. In the process of looking at that, we actually did a full condition assessment of the building, and in kind of just a summary of the major points, as I just said, there is a major structural collapse in the northwest corner of the building. It involves the roof structure, involves ceiling structure, and there's actually not a full load path from the roof structure to the ground, both near the north end of the structure and the south end of the structure. We didn't do an analytical assessment of the structural system, but based on our experience, based on the visual observations that we made, there's inadequate framing at the above the load-bearing walls near the north end and the south end of the building. The roof joists are undersized for current codes. The truss connections are undersized for current codes. The masonry walls are 3-wide masonry walls, unreinforced, would not meet current seismic provisions. And probably most significantly, the foundation of this building, common to buildings of this era, but the foundation of this building is, I am absolutely sure, is inadequate just based on the amount of masonry damage that we're seeing, based on the amount of deformations that we're seeing with regard to internal floor structure. Doors are racked, plaster's cracked, brick, as I said, the exterior brick has got substantial damage. Some of it's been repaired, and you got very large masonry joints where it was repaired. Some of those have stayed without further movement. Some of them have continued to move. And in addition, there's corrosion in the concrete stair structures around the structure. There's corrosion of the rebar, deterioration of the wood soffits. The parking lot on the north side of the structure is completely failed. So that's just the shopping list of some of the structural issues. As I indicated in my report, I'm the first to admit that most structural issues, with enough time and enough money, basically we can repair almost anything. But based on the number of issues that I see here, it's just, in my opinion, there's no economically viable way to repair this structure. In addition to all of that, and it's outside my area of expertise, but based on experience in dealing with these kinds of problems, as Kenyon just said, there's substantial ADA issues, there's substantial MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing issues, there's fire issues. When you start looking at what it takes to get this building to a safe, code-compliant condition, there's just not an economically viable way to do that. I would like to bring Kenyon back up and let him talk specifically to some of the concerns that staff had with regard to the character-defining architectural features of this building. Kenyon?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, I wanted to address, the staff recommendations, because we were, surprised that the staff denied this application, and on the basis was that the project does not comply with the guidelines of the Scenic River Overlay Design District, and it refers to Section D. Went to Section D and goes to reference, and it says that, in order to preserve the legacy of the past, structures and sites within the SRODD that are significant to the history of the nation, state, city, or district should be rehabilitated so that as much as the original fabric as possible remains intact. Okay, now this is the part that really I think is very significant. Existing buildings and character-defining architectural features such as building mass, roofs, exterior walls, doors, windows, and architectural detailing should be retained and refurbished and remain in their original locations. Frankly, in looking at these buildings, there are no significant details about the roof, exterior walls, doors, windows, or any architectural detailing that really are significant and that you would want to retain or refurbish. And I can show, I have a handout that we did from Google site that I think emphasizes this. This building sits between two very significant buildings. It sits between the Riverside School and the Little Flower Church. And if you go to the corner, may I pass these out? I'm passing out a handout, and Steve Ford really knows how to operate Google.
She's actually got pictures that she's already shown that basically
Right. But the first, I think these are better, though. The first one, I think these are about the same. But the first handout here is the NSO building. And then the other two, and these are all taken from this corner of 11th and Walker. And then the second picture here is a Riverside School that he took from this corner because Google Maps didn't allow you to go on 11th Street. And the second one is the Riverside Church. And, you know, these are significant buildings. I think this one almost just in plain contrast to it really is not significant. Although if there were significant windows there, they've all been bricked over. If there were significant doors there, they've all been replaced. And, you know, I think another element that I'd like to speak to is the fact that the city now is trying to create very walkable communities. And the way this building is situated on the street right to the property line, and it has one floor 6 feet below elevation, the other 6 feet above, you can't really have an entry on Walker. And one of the things that we addressed in our plan, and I don't know if it's if you've looked at that in your is that we've made our building very walkable. It's addressed to the street. It's addressed to a future neighborhood that everybody hopes this area of the city that this area of the city will become in the future. So I don't think that's possible with this building here. This building here will just, even if renovated, and I don't think this building would be renovated for decades, frankly, if ever. I think, in fact, I don't think it would ever be renovated. I think if it's not torn down now, it will sit and further deteriorate and be torn down 10 or 20 years or 30 years from now. So it's really not about whether this building would be demolished. It's about when it will be demolished, and it's about NSO coming back, and that you talk about the historic fabric of a community. NSO has been in this neighborhood for 60 years, and this is their effort to continue to be part of the social fabric of this community. And Sam Bowman is here to speak about that. He was a longtime director of NSO. So.
Morning, Commission.
Good morning.
Name is Sam Bowman, 2628 Northwest 24th Street. I'm going to take a little different tact. I think we've heard sufficiently about the structural deficiencies. Kenyon pointed to the fact of the period of time that NSO and its predecessor organization has existed in this neighborhood. So I want to just address and bring to your attention some of the historical social fabric of Wesley Center. And in that, I mean the continuum of social services over the past 60 years. I served as the early director of neighborhood services up until the mid-90s, and have been invited back to head up the capital campaign for NSO. Prior to my arrival in 1970, the United Methodist operated in the same facility, a settlement house for 20, 25, I don't know, maybe 30 years. In part of this old facility, much in the tradition of the Jane Addams settlement houses in Chicago and New York. Truly a settlement house in that you worked and lived in the neighborhood you served. And the United Methodists called and appointed lay deaconesses to live in settlement houses like Wesley Center, which they did previous to neighborhood services time. Lived and worked in the neighborhood. I arrived in 1970, and neighborhood services continued that same spirit and tradition of basic and essential human services to that community, and as neighborhood services grew, to the expanded community in Oklahoma City. But even in growing and expanding beyond the Riverside community, neighborhood services has always been the hub in the headquarters for the agency until 2 years ago, when the building was no longer functional or safe to occupy it. So our staff were vacated and are housed now in temporary facilities south of Walker, and we'll be there until we're relocated. After that move, we invited the bishop of the United Methodist Church in Oklahoma to come and do a decommissioning ceremony at the facility. And about a year and a half ago, he came out on a nice afternoon, and on the podium back behind the chain link fence and crumbling building, presided over a decommissioning service. But in doing that, he charged us to just remember our historical commitment to service in this neighborhood, and charged us to return to this location of Southwest 11th as soon as the new facility was readied for us. That charge was taken seriously by the organization and by the United Methodist Church. The ownership of this facility, which is the women's division of United Methodist Church in New York, has conveyed to us and ready to give the title to us on the condition of receiving the demolition permit, that they and the Oklahoma Conference, the United Methodist and the Oklahoma Conference as well, have absolutely no further use of this deteriorating and crumbling building. And on that condition are willing to turn over the deed to Neighborhood Services on the condition that the demolition permit is approved. And it is for that we're here this morning, to ask your consideration, both with regards to the structural considerations as well as to the social history of Neighborhood Services at this location, that you approve this request of ours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Scotty, from the city viewpoint, what comments do you have, please?
Some years after the initial contact, our Phase 4 of the intensive level survey identified this as a historic resource, as a contributing resource to a potential district. What makes up a district is the context. It shows the history and how that neighborhood evolved. So removal of this resource would lessen the evidence of the history for this potential district. So we definitely recommend denial of this application, because staff can only consider the historic relevance. We don't have the ability to use economic feasibility as one of our guidelines. However, in the past, there have been some instances where a contributing resource, if a new project proposed, would mitigate the loss of that historic resource and was comparable or better, would produce a better product or a better contribution to the neighborhood, then it has been, as part of the discretionary powers of the committee, it has been allowed to be demolished. However, our staff recommendation at this point is for denial of this.
Okay, thank you. But from a realistic viewpoint, and I can understand the historical aspects. We've lost too much of downtown, just knocked down, and now we're trying to save what's left. But if it's going to cost so much more to rehabilitate a building than demolish it?
They have a proposal for a new project, which is on our agenda to be scheduled as a communication item. Would it be helpful for you to see that presentation now?
I think so, but before we do that...
Help you determine whether or not it would mitigate the loss?
Committee members, comments, questions?
I would like to know if there's anyone in the audience to speak against the proposal.
Is there anyone speaking against demolishing this building, or speaking? No.
I feel that the staff kind of default position against demolition of a building is a proper position But, obviously there are extenuating circumstances to any idea or whatever, and I think that the presentations that we've just heard sort of show that there are extenuating on top of extenuating on top of extenuating, to where I would recommend approval of the application.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Joyce, second by Mr. Casper. All those in favor, and this motion is to approve the application of demolishing the building.
Correct.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone against? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for your time. The next item on our agenda is item 7A with regard to 426 and 500 Southeast 15th Street. Aubrey?
This is a proposal to rezone properties to a specific planned unit development? No, simplified planned unit development in the Gateway District. So you're asked to provide a recommendation on that rezoning to Planning Commission and City Council.
Is the applicant present, please? Would you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Philip Fitzgerald from Fitzgerald Associates Architects. We practice at 3900 North Santa Fe in Oklahoma City. What we were here earlier, several months ago, asking for approval to, I believe we were looking at material finishes. And after we went for plan review, we have discovered this was a non-conforming use, and that the parking lot across the street that we were intending on using was zoned residential, and so we've been required to come here today to discuss the SPUD that we're asking for to allow the expansion of the Skyline Ministries facility to have food distribution for the needy. And this is free food distribution, which is interviewed clients and qualify for food and allow them to shop in a grocery store environment. So, and we have also allowed to have a little small area for loading and unloading for people that need assistance. And traditionally, these food pantries have been able to distribute anywhere from 16 to 50 families a day. They don't operate; they operate late hours and finish usually late afternoons. So what we're asking for is to allow parking across the street. Skyline Ministries originally had 25 parking spaces. We are now going to have conveniently 42 spaces, which is certainly more than adequate for the project. And then secondly, we're here to also ask for a materials variance on the project. So, and then you can see from the existing building is about a little over 8,000 square feet. The new building that we're adding is a little over 6,000 feet, most of which is a shopping area and some warehouse space for daily delivery of product. We've met with all the landscaping requirements with the City of Oklahoma City, and the real issue is the fact that our parking is across Byers, which is, even though adjacent to our property, is across the street. And we've tried to allow for as much parking and landscaping as possible. We've also going to ask the city for a variance. Our entrance currently is on 15th Street. We think it's going to be much safer for clients to actually enter on the Byer Street. However, the city requirement is a 100-foot entrance facility from 15th Street. We're about 75 feet. But we're also trying to save about a 60-year-old tree there. So we think that it's still appropriate and safe to enter and exit on Byers about 75 feet away from the roadway. And I don't believe that's part of this submittal. However, that kind of explains our project. But Skyline Ministries is they distribute clothing and have a senior citizen get together once or twice a week, and then we'll also, with the food pantry and the Oklahoma Regional Food Bank, we'll distribute some food to the needy.
Okay, thank you. Now, Scotty, this application is just the material, right?
This is just to provide a recommendation on the rezoning to the SPUD
Right.
and all the elements that are included in that SPUD, which also include the exterior cladding of the new building.
Okay. Committee, any comments, questions?
I have a question. What is on the existing, where the proposed parking lot is? What's there right now?
The existing building is an old speed fabricate tilt-up building, which someday they would also like to insulate and add EFS to stop the energy consumption on that old building.
I'm talking about where you're talking about creating parking, that
Here.
Oh, that's a vacant lot.
vacant lot.
And to the south of it, the reason that's angled at the corner, because there's some old oil wells there. And we're also here to discuss the material usage.
Right. John, do you have any comments? We've lost some of our committee members on as far as the material is concerned.
Well, I want to hear more about that. What materials are we being asked to approve?
You originally approved metal, architectural metal panels and split-face block. Now they're coming back and asking that they be allowed to clad the entire building with EFS product. It's supposed to be a new process. It is a higher quality EFS application than we normally see, and so he's brought some samples to show you. However, our ordinance says that you can only have 20%, and so you have a couple of choices. Option one would be to approve the SPUD with this material in it. Option two would be to ask them to come back with an alternate material. If they proceed with this one, we will have to ask that if you do choose to allow this material, the SPUD can stand as it is now, or if you want them to come back with an alternate material, they would need to amend the SPUD to reflect the new material prior to it being presented for rezoning.
Okay.
Currently, the requirements are allow masonry, 100% stucco, stone, but they only allow for 20% EFS, but 100% stucco. And we maintain that properly detailed, that EFS is a superior material to the stucco. We've had quite a bit of experience with EFS and stucco is a complete full masonry product. It has no insulation value, and with any movement, it'll crack. And so the EFS is really cementuous, but it has an acrylic base in it, and it also allows for an insulation value up to whatever the thickness of insulation applied to it is. And so we've got some samples to show you that there is no aesthetic difference between stucco and EFS. In fact, we would also recommend that perhaps this may be changed in your Riverfront district requirements, because we believe EFS is possibly a superior material in many instances to the stucco. And so we've got samples to show you if you'd like to see those.
Would any of you care to see them?
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
I might comment, stucco really isn't a very desirable product in our climate. The EFS is a superior product. I basically agree with what Phil's saying.
Okay, thank you.
I had to bring someone else to help me hold this today. The stucco is purely cementuous. It has behind it a mesh, steel mesh. It has a scratch coat of plaster. It has a brown coat of plaster, and it has this finish coat. And so it's 100% cementuous, so if there's any movement at all without proper detailing, there'll be cracks in this, not unlike brick or masonry. Okay, this particular sample of EFS is shown that it has the styrofoam insulation, and this insulation can be vary in thicknesses and allow better R value. This one actually has a panzer mesh on it, which allows it to be impact resistant, and then it has a Primus material and a finish coat. And another example of this is the Brick Down Ballpark, is the entire backstop behind the backstop is all EFS, so it gets hit with foul balls daily on a daily basis, so it's very impact resistant. And so with the insulation value, the impact resistance, and the fact that this has an acrylic in it and allows movement without cracking, we think this will be a superior material to the stucco with the insulation value in that.
What's the longevity of something like that? I'm a lawyer. I know nothing about any of that at all.
Stucco has been in use probably 40 or 50 years, so we have no issues with using it. The issue has been in the past, it had some bad raps early because it was not detailed properly. The other detail that we show today has actually, if it's, depending on what type of use it is, it has a rain screen behind it. So if they use a dab and dash system and there's water to get behind it, then there's a rain screen to allow it to go through. If you have a solid surface such as this, it has to be, the primus has to be fully adhered and completely enmeshed in it. So there's two methods of detail and construction. Of course, with any material, it doesn't matter with stucco or ephes, all the joints have to be sealed, the windows have to be sealed, and proper flashing. So.
I have a couple comments. One would be that we're talking about ephes in lieu of architectural metal panels. Am I correct?
Well, we took bids on the metal panels, and they cannot afford them. Also, another issue with the metal panels is there is some graffiti in the area, and we were concerned that if the metal panels were graffitied, that we would have an issue with refinishing the metal panels, and that if it's stucco, we can paint it.
My point just being that architectural metal panels can be either very nice or not so nice at all. And so I think that, the ephes to me is not a, downgrade from metal panel necessarily. I mean, if we were to require them to do, brick masonry, and then now they're coming back and asking for, 100%, they're coming back asking for ephes, that would be one thing. But I don't really see it as being a big downgrade in this instance. And then the other thing is that in context of the area, you said one of the buildings was one of those what did we call it?
Speed fabcrete.
Yeah, and I can promise you the ephes is a tremendous upgrade to that, which is already at our site. So I think it would be fine.
Do you have any comments on this product with the weep panel behind it as opposed to this other application?
Scotty, I would ask that it depended on the actual application, that both systems are appropriate. But again, it's a specification issue.
Okay.
Certainly before we go, talking about changing our standards or something, we would want the architects on the committee and stuff to be present. But in terms of this particular application, I would recommend approval.
I would say. Okay. Recommended by Mr. Joyce, seconded by Mr. Caspert. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Thank you very much for your time.
For clarification, you are giving a recommendation to the City Council to approve the rezoning?
That's correct. Yeah, that's what it says. Thank you. Okay. Item 8, communications. Thank you. A, presentation by Kenyon Morgan, 431 Southwest 11th. Welcome back.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we have, we've been excited about being able to design a facility that I think is appropriate within the range of the two historical structures that are flank this on either side. We've also been able to design a building that addresses the street and has a sidewalk right here. So this is the Walker facade. Honestly, you see this building when you come over the Walker Avenue. So we've actually sort of had two prominent corners. This is the one on the north, and then there's a similar one on the south side too. But we've in keeping with a walkable community, we've had sidewalks right up, very close to the building. We've had windows that address that. We have awnings here. and the parking is in back, but the building is dissected by a nice sort of space that then goes to the dental office on one side and the headquarters building on the other side. I think if you can go to the, who's controlling the slide? Yes. You can see this building right here. It is a tight site, and we are looking, this is actually, in this case, the top is to the south, and that's 11th Street, and this is Walker Street. But the way we've been able to, instead of putting a parking lot in front, which of course is not very friendly to the street, we put the parking on this side, but we still wanted an entry on both sides. So we solved that by creating a nice space in the center, which then will be a way to for education, to small events, and so forth. So you can enter from Walker, or you can enter from the parking lot. And then this is the dental clinic that's extremely popular there. And then this is the headquarters building here, and we have lots of community spaces here that they can bring in for education and other events. If you could go to the next slide, I think this is just another rendering of the same one you saw. But if you can go to the next one, please. Okay, this is from, and if the lights are dim, these would be a little bit better to see. But this is from the southwest corner, and as you can see, we addressed the corner with a nice facade here. You can see the Riverside School in the background, and you'll be able to see the Little Flower Church is basically the sidewalk in front of the Little Flower Church is probably the perspective point from this for this rendering. So we really very intentionally designed a building that we think will be inviting to the neighborhood, and say that this neighborhood is being transformed into an area for people. Frankly, if you look at the other buildings along this route right now, you've got a blend of parking lots and metal buildings, and so I think this is a real start to having the west part of this neighborhood. Of course, the Court Shore is in the east part of this neighborhood, but having the west part of this neighborhood really start become a prominent place for the city of Oklahoma City. So now we will bring this back to you later on, from what I understand. But I just wanted, if you have comments right now, we would very much appreciate them, because we just are now completing the preliminary design process, and we'll be going into the design, development, and construction process, really beginning right now with the approval of the demolition of the other one. So if you have comments, please.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on the committee have any comments at this time?
Are the finishes there that we're seeing that look like brick, are they going to be brick?
They will be brick, yes. This will be a brick structure with cast concrete, details and so forth. So I think we can. Yeah, I mean, we would. This is even cast concrete on the top for the. So yeah, it's going to be a very building that's very appealing, and really, well, I think will set a high standard for new buildings in this area.
I also think your awning gives it kind of a period feel to tie in with the rest that's there too. I like that.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate your affirmative vote on the other. Very much so.
Thank you. Okay. Item 8B, presentation by Elliott and Associates. Rand Elliott. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Ken Fitzsimmons with Task Design at 1228 Northwest 36, and I'm here on behalf of Rand Elliott. Rand couldn't be here today, apologies, and hopefully I'll fill in okay for him. I'm here to talk about the proposed zip line that is at Regatta, that we're planning at Regatta Park. We just submitted this for CA to Scotty the last few days, and we're about to send it out for permit submittal as well. And so I guess do you have the control of the slides, or do I have this? Okay. Scroll. Gotcha. Okay. All right, so a little bit of background here. This is the overall current master plan for Regatta Park. And coming in over here, we have Lincoln, the Chesapeake Boathouse, 6th Street, running down. This shows the future whitewater facility that's underway right now in planning. Currently, there's the Finish Line Tower, the Devon Boathouse, and the Blue Cross Blue Shield play area, and the ropes course Sky Trail as part of the Sand Ridge Youth Pavilion. And this is where the location for the zip line would start at the top of the existing tower, and the proposal is to cross the river to the south shore to a new tower, and then return back to a shorter platform on the north shore just east of the ropes course. Let's see. This is a, sorry, I'll go through. This is part of an overall presentation, so there might be some extraneous slides in there. So this is the view from 6th Street as you come down and see the existing ropes course tower with the power fan and the spiral slide on the other side. And what we're looking at doing is putting a platform up here that would allow people to enter the zip line, go across the river to the south shore. And another view of the tower. Here's a section that may show this a little bit more directly. This is the existing ropes course tower on the north shore. Here we're looking to the west. We're cutting a section through the river here. And the span is approximately 400 feet across the river. The zip line span, because it's set back on the tower, would be in the range of 670 feet. And the idea is that you would, again, take off from here, go to the south shore, and enter at a lower elevation. And then you would climb up the tower while in a safety harness the whole time, or within a guardrail or a safety harness. And then you'd be put on a zip line to return to the north shore to a shorter platform here that we're proposing. So as far as new features, we're proposing this South Shore Tower and this North Shore platform. The Sky Trail, as far as the aesthetics and the look, will really not change. It's just a platform being added. There's already elements up there that people walk around, so there will not be significant changes there. Some more context. This is a section showing the windscreen on the South Shore, and this is our proposed foundation for the tower. We're looking at using piers that would go down about 50 to 60 feet to bedrock, and we found that to be the most economical way, and that would also prevent any danger of, if the river did have an extreme flood situation, even if it scoured away some of the earth around the base of the tower, the piers are going down far enough that there's not going to be a danger of it having structural failure. So the next slide, plan showing this as well. Again, the North Shore Tower, the proposed new zip line tower on the South Shore, and then the return platform over here. And large view of that. This is the existing light. Back up here, there were some lights that were just recently installed as part of MAPS 3 on the North Shore and on the South Shore. So the proximity of this new tower to the light is far enough away that it's not an issue there. There's the light pole. This is the new tower. The lines come here and then go back there, so people are not anywhere near that. And then on the North Shore, again, this is north of an inlet that's there now. It would be just east of the future youth pavilion. Close-up elevation of the South Shore Tower. This is looking to the west. And again, for context, the windscreen, this is the river, the riprap. The tower is approximately 65 feet tall, and it will have actually very few people on it at any given time. The purpose of this is, again, just to transport people as they get over here, to relay them to another platform, and then they go back. There will probably be 1 to 2 staff people working this. And as you can see, it's a guardrail stair going all the way up, so it's not like the South Shore where people are going up as an attraction. It's just strictly to walk up and down. People will come over and they'll have a harness on, and before they release them from the harness to go up the stairs, they will have to go behind a gate, and then they can take their harness off. They go up to the next level, and before they walk out on that platform, then they have to have the harness on. So people are always in a harness or behind a guardrail for safety purposes. And so the company that would be doing this is the same company that built the Sky Trail Ropes Course Tower on the North Shore, Ropes Course Incorporated, and they've been doing this for about 30 years and have done about 150 of these towers. And on the bottom part, just to talk about this a little bit, we have this on the North Shore platform and actually on the existing SkyTrail as well. We would like to put a 10-foot high anti-climb barrier to try to keep people from climbing up the tower after hours. By code, only 42-inch high guardrail is required down the stairs, but we'd like to go further than that. And we know this is an attractive element for people to try to be a little daring on, so we want to try to prevent that as much as possible and have this anti-climb mesh, which would probably be either a wire mesh or it may match what's on the North Shore tower now at the base. There's an existing screened entry there. To talk about the North Shore platform a little bit, this is the inlet right here. This is the Riverwalk. And so the future youth pavilion would be just behind us here. And the finished floor of that future youth pavilion would be at 1177, which all of the other boathouses have been set at. That's 1 foot above one of the major floodplain zones, so that prevents issues about the buildings ever being flooded with normal flooding, I should say. The new platform would be approximately 20 feet above the Riverwalk here, and the idea is to make this a simple structure, and it has the angled elements that again relate back to the boathouses, and again an anti-climb barrier. So people come into this, and this is strictly for landing. People do not take off from this or do anything else. They just come in. There's a staff person working there that's also on a safety harness. They grab the person. They land safely by coming into this elevated ramp, and there's a pad there so they can run up a hill, if you will, to slow down and stop. And there's also the cable stops back here, but people usually stop before they get to the end of the rope, if you will. And then they come up here to the top of a platform, go through a gate, and then untethered. So they're always in a harness as they're in an area that does not have a guardrail. And the guardrailing in this case is higher than 42 inches. It's probably 10 feet tall, again, as an anti-climb barrier to keep people out after hours. This is a view of the new proposed South Shore tower. This would be looking actually from the south to the north. And what we're doing here is actually bringing up an element down to the ground, again, to relate back to the North Shore existing SkyTrail and the element of the boathouses, which is all about the angles, the idea of boat prows cutting through the wave. And so this is the landing platform. This is what you would land on if you're coming from the north, and then you go upstairs and you take off from this platform. Close-up view of the North Shore platform again. And the materials here would be the same as what you've already seen on the SkyTrail. It's all structural pipe or tube steel painted the same color white as the other boathouses. So this will be in the same vocabulary and will be consistent with everything else out there. Some 3D views of this. The South Shore tower with the future windscreen behind it and the angled element with the existing light pole there. Close-up view, this would be from the west looking east, and the light pole in the foreground. This is an overall view of the existing SkyTrail, the new South Shore tower, and again the line between the two. And then the North Shore platform with the SkyTrail ropes course tower in the background, and then lastly a view of just the North Shore landing platform.
Thank you very much. Any comments, anyone from the committee? I assume Rand is going to be our guinea pig to go across first, right?
Well, he keeps joking that Mike Knopp, the executive director of the Boathouse District, wants to push Rand off one of these features one day, but Rand hasn't let that happen yet. So.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Very interesting project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on with our agenda, still on item 8C, administrative approval report. We have nothing. Item D, comments from the planning department.
I don't think we have anything at this time. Scotty?
I don't think so. If we do, I'll let you know.
Okay, I'm sure you will. Item E, comments from the committee. Item F, next meeting date is Thursday, December the 5th. Do we have anything on the agenda as of yet? No?
We have some that are pending, but I don't know whether they're going to go forward or not.
Okay. Item 9, adjournment. Entertain a motion for adjournment. Ms. Casperett? Split. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.